One of the things you said early on in this conversation that I thought was interesting is it seems like some of the existing theories about intimate partner violence, because that work was really geared towards women who are victims, that a lot of the theories sort of presumed this particular sort of gender dynamic, right? So it's sort of, and that studying male victims kind of sort of undermines the theoretical underpinning of those frameworks. So it's a threat to the theory, it's a threat to the explanation, or at least those as universal explanations for this phenomena. Am I on track at all?
Oh yeah, it's a perfect question. Absolutely, this is exactly how the feminist, especially advocates, see that as as a threat to their main paradigm, the main framework they work in. And this is where I see the difference between real scientific theory, which we actually try to falsify, because only when it's falsified for the falsification principle, it's actually truly scientific theory. There should be conditions when it can be falsified. When it actually becomes an ideology, the idea that you shouldn't question even because it's the truth and it's his truth and you just do what you're told to do. So this is where I see a big difference when life scientific theory, very important instrument we use to explain the world, turns into an ossified set of ideas that shouldn't be challenged and become ideology. So that is why it's called paradigm or ideology sometimes. And I would say feminist theory is an important theory. It played a very important role in our attention to domestic violence, intimate partner violence. It's still very important for us to understand the differences in violence against women internationally, cross-culturally. We see many differences in different societies, and gender equality is one of the serious factors that predicts violence against women. In societies where women do not enjoy equal rights with men, the violence against women are much, much higher, right? So we see that feminist theory, it can be a viable theory in a different context. When it comes to Western societies right now, it's getting, in some ways, it doesn't explain many things anymore. For example, I told you violence in lesbian relationship right now is one of the highest rates compared to heterosexual relationship and any other relationship in sexual minority groups. Why? We wouldn't think that that would be the case, right? So it's just an instrument. It's just a tool that if it's not working, we develop other tools that explains violence better. And we see that some sociological, psychological theories, it just explains it better. We
So
see the new factors, yeah, there.
so like sort of tell me if I'm on the right track here. Is that some of in sort of the social sciences broadly, we think about sort of predictors of a phenomena, and that for any phenomena pretty much there's multiple predictors, and those predictors explain certain amounts of the variance, right? They explain certain amounts of the outcome. Why is this thing the way it is? Well, it's for a whole bunch of different reasons. So that a lot of the variables in feminist theory, that those are variables in the model, but they're not all of the predictors. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not to say like none of these things are relevant, but it's that they are likely in certain, again, explain a certain amount of the variance in violence, and it's going to vary across cultures, across.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and we should use this valuable information for explaining certain variants in why violence happens, especially in cross-cultural studies. This is what I'm finding right now. The major application of the feminist theory is in relation to the international context, especially in the developing and non-industrialized countries. This is where we see that it works quite well, and it predicts those changes, those higher rates of violence in the countries where women cannot even drive, cannot leave the house alone, and so on and so forth. So we see that, right? And it works. However, when it comes to the countries where there are men and women enjoying so much more equality, it's not perfect equality yet, but we're striving there, right? It's getting much better for women in the West, in Canada, in the United States. It's getting better. And it looks like there are many more different factors that play an important role. Like I told you, one of the most significant predictors is experience in child abuse. That's a consistent and very strong predictor. Then verbal aggression in the couple. This is a strong predictor of physical violence. We know that if partners starting raising boys at each other, yeah, it's a strong predictor that it may be associated with also higher physical violence. And there are some other factors like substance use. We know it, due to various mechanisms, affects chances of violence in relationship. People are just more likely to hurt each other when they under the influence of alcohol. So we know frustration and stress affects people, right? We know level of education also plays an important role, and social status plays an important role. Like, there are so many different factors. And I think by focusing on gender and inequality and dominance of men in the society, it's important in certain contexts. It's still important, and I'm thinking it's important in this kind of international context, in the non-industrialized world, to look at that. But in our context, we need to explore all other factors as well, because knowing them, we can actually deal with the situation much better if we know that this is what predicts very high chances of abuse later on in the spousal relationship, that this happens early in the childhood or during the growing up or in dating relationship. So we just much better equipped to address violence more effectively.